The duration of the Infinity Saga largely served to build up not only the roster of Avengers and heroes both on Earth and throughout the galaxy, but it also served to build the sense of existential dread that came with anticipating the villain at the end of the decade-long story arc, the now infamous antagonist known as the Mad Titan Thanos, who sought to collect the legendary Infinity Stones in order to wipe out half of all life in the universe, in order to save the survivors from overpopulation and ultimate extinction. Throughout the course of the saga, we slowly learn about not only the history and powers of the Infinity Stones, but learn to track their whereabouts and hunt them down in one of the most elaborate cinematic scavenger hunts to date that had avid MCU fans scouring the lore of the universe in search of the remaining stones that had not yet appeared in the MCU. But as more and more of the Infinity Stones surface, we are gradually left to continually wonder why Thanos didn't begin his quest sooner. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we explore a few of the reasons why exactly Thanos took so long to begin his hunt for the precious Infinity Stones. And today, we believe we have found all of the answers, or most of them, as to why Thanos waited for so long. The first reason is that he, much like the viewers, had to track the stones down before beginning his quest. As the longer he is in possession of one or more of the stones, the more he is likely to be targeted by others. We have theorized before that he has an extensive network of spies and informants, which is how he is able to keep track of the stones as they trade hands after he has found them. And it's important to remember that once he does find a stone, he does in fact attempt to get his hands on it, albeit indirectly at first. The main difference, however, between Infinity War and the earlier days of the MCU is that Thanos often sends heralds in order to keep himself in the shadows and out of the public image. He sends Loki to Earth to bring him the Tesseract in exchange for giving him dominion over Midgard, much like he sends Ronan the Accuser to collect the Power Stone from the Guardians, and why he sent Gamora on a quest to find the Soul Stone. Thanos is not only incredibly powerful, but he is also a talented strategist and knows when and how to play his cards, and he knows that staying under the radar is the best way to discreetly collect the Infinity Stones in private, while drawing as little attention as possible to himself, the man behind the schemes. It's also important to remember that while he still didn't find out the whereabouts of the Soul Stone until Infinity War was well underway, that he had still gotten his hands on 3 of the other Infinity Stones. When he does finally decide to step in and collect the stones personally, it is likely because he knows that the most formidable defenses that he will come up against on his quest are at their weakest, deeming it time for his direct intervention. Though it's unclear whether or not he knows the status of the fractured Avengers, he seems to be relatively well informed throughout the course of the MCU, and it would not be far-fetched or surprising at all to learn he knew of the Avengers division after Civil War. He also knows that not only is Odin now dead, but the entirety of Asgard, which is often regarded as one of the most formidable galactic armadas in the region, is now completely destroyed. The remaining Asgardians are left to flee on a small refugee ship, carrying with them an Infinity Stone that is ripe for the taking. Hence why he is most likely able to track down the ship in the post-credit scene of Ragnarok. He is actually tracking the Space Stone itself. Though it is unclear how exactly he knows of this so soon, he seems to know that the Tesseract has traded hands between the Avengers and the Asgardians after the events of the first Avengers outing, which means that it stands to reason that he was watching Asgard closely in the time leading up to Thor Ragnarok. Likewise, both Ego and the Ancient One are now dead, who many fans have speculated would pose the biggest threats to his conquests. Ego the Living Planet is, in the MCU at least, a Celestial, and we learn through the Guardians franchise that the Celestials are well acquainted with the power of the Infinity Stones. If Ego came to find out that an intergalactic warlord sought to collect all 6, he would likely have the wisdom and desire to step in and challenge Thanos, knowing the destruction that all the stones in one person's hands could cause. We also have evidence to suggest that Thanos had been tracking the Time Stone for quite some time before Infinity War, as he not only knows the stone is on Earth in Infinity War, but he knows exactly where to send his children to find it, with the ship landing just mere blocks away from the Sanctum Sanctorum. As far as Thanos had been concerned, the Ancient One was likely the strongest guardian of the Time Stone that he was aware of, with centuries of practice with the mystic arts under her belt. After all, we saw the iconic battle between Doctor Strange and Thanos on Titan, and bore direct witness to what the good Doctor was truly capable of after just 2 short years of studying and practicing using sorcery. So it makes sense that Thanos would most likely regard the Ancient One in higher esteem than her successor. however powerful he may be. Though it is important to note that we don't know how much time Doctor Strange spent practicing and training while in the Dark Dimension time loop, as well as his trance-like state wherein he foresaw 14 million different possible futures. But based on Thanos' perception of the new Sorcerer Supreme, he would likely regard him as far weaker than the Ancient One by default. With Strange being a relative novice to the title of Sorcerer Supreme, it makes sense that Thanos would regard the death of the Ancient One as a prime opportunity to strike and take the stone for himself. From here, it's a matter of time, as a quest this large tends to draw the attention of the greatest defense forces in the galaxy, which is likely why he chose Xandar as his first target. If he had decided to start with the rest of the stones, then Xandar would have ample time to fortify their planet, rally the Nova Corps, and be on high alert for invasion, posing a much greater challenge to Thanos in acquiring the Power Stone. In the comics, the Power Stone is also able to amplify the power of the other stones, adding yet another reason why going for the Power Stone first made the most tactical sense. But the in-universe explanation for why Thanos waited so long likely comes down to a combination of different factors, primarily waiting until he had found all or nearly all of the stones, locating them over decades, waiting for the defense measures around the stones to fall naturally, and trying first to collect the stones discreetly through the use of his heralds and henchmen. Many of Thanos' greatest threats fall naturally before he decides to directly pursue the stones. Odin passes away over the events of Thor Ragnarok due to his old age, with Odin potentially being the greatest threat to Thanos acquiring all of the stones, as at the time Odin is one of the most powerful MCU characters and potentially someone that could stop Thanos even in the possession of several Infinity Stones. Just as we saw later in Infinity War, Thor was able to throw Stormbreaker at Thanos with a fully assembled gauntlet, and if Thor had simply gone for the head, he could have stopped Thanos. This likely adds more precedence to Odin being able to stop Thanos even if he had collected nearly all of the stones. Not to mention Ego, to our current knowledge, one of the last Celestials in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the most powerful beings, and someone that Thanos was likely aware of. The Ancient One, the master of the mystic arts, and a master of the Time Stone, one of the greatest threats to Thanos, as again we saw the might of Doctor Strange coming against Thanos on Titan, and we can only imagine what the Ancient One herself would have been capable of against the Mad Titan. Not to mention the fracturing of the Avengers, which I believe also played a major role on why Thanos waited so long. I don't believe the Avengers were the priority of his greatest threats, but I certainly believe that they were a factor, especially because many of the Infinity Stones were located on Earth. If over here at the channel though we had to boil it down to a single reason why Thanos waited so long, we theorized that it was the death of the Allfather Odin that caused Thanos to move directly against the Infinity Stones. Upon learning of his death and the destruction of Asgard itself, as well as the Infinity Stone leaving Asgard, this is the defining moment where Thanos mobilizes himself and the rest of his army. As in the opening minutes of Infinity War, he's directly attacking the Asgardians right after Xandar. Thanos even likely feared that if he did not go for the Power Stone first, he would not be able to fend off the rest of the Asgardians, something that he was actually likely correct about. If you think about it, Thanos is actually quite the lucky character when it comes to collecting all of the stones, as everything seems to nearly perfectly fall in line for him. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this and why Thanos took so long to pursue the Infinity Stones? Do you agree with the reasons that we proposed in this video? And do you believe that above all, it was actually the death of Odin, the Allfather, that caused Thanos to move on the stones immediately following his death and following the events of Thor Ragnarok? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.